Hello, welcome back to the Law of Attraction Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Keith. And today I just want to talk about this feeling of heaviness and just this energetic vibe that's been happening the last couple of weeks, and then even more so in the last week. Because everyone I've been talking to and coming in contact with, whether in real life or online on social media, we all seem to be feeling it and thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I feel so depressed, drained, whatever? And I feel like the whole world right now needs a nervous system reset. We need to give ourselves some space to process all this crazy shit going on. So just over the past week, we had Irina Zarutska that was brutally murdered on the train, the railway, and there was a video of it that went viral, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And then we had Charlie Kirk, same thing. The video is out there. It was out there for I think a full day and was being shared and posted everywhere. We had school shootings. There was a university stabbing. A lot of really horrific things going on. And what makes it even worse is the fact that these videos were just everywhere. I know I was on social media not looking for anything, and boom, there it was, because everyone was sharing it, everyone was posting it. They kept it up for, an entire day. And to see another human being murdered in such a graphic way, shocking way, is not normal. It is not normal. We're not supposed to be seeing this on a regular basis. You think about life before social media, and sure, you would see stuff on a video game or in a movie, but it's fake. I'm sure at the subconscious level, maybe it does some damage, but it's fake. And it's like maybe in your entire life, there's, outside of healthcare workers and first responders, like an average person might see something like that maybe once, twice in their life. And it's one of those things that sticks with you. And here we're seeing it, over and over again on social media. And it doesn't matter if you didn't know the person, liked the person, didn't like the person, whatever, seeing another human being go out like that in front of you. So watching this video it's traumatic. It's, I think about the youth of today. Like my daughter is a teenager, and I just can't imagine like what's going through her mind. I mean, kids are probably sharing this stuff and posting it and sending it to each other. And, at younger and younger ages, they're being exposed to this stuff. What is that doing to their subconscious? What is it doing to their nervous system? Because I know for me, as a full grown adult, it's messed with me. I can't stop thinking about it. I try, but it's one of those things that just it's such a hard thing to get out of your head. If especially if you see it, So there's all of that going on, and then it's like everyone's first response is, it throws your nervous system into survival mode. So you are in fight, flight, or fawn. So fight, we're seeing a lot of that, right? Everyone's blaming one another, a lot of anger, getting mad at one another. That's a nervous system response when you're dysregulated, when you're in survival mode. Flight is, you're ignoring it. You're running in the opposite direction. A lot of people do this too. I almost did this. It's like you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to bring it up. You want to just like pretend it didn't happen. But your nervous system remembers your body. If you're not processing it and releasing this energy and like working through it, your body stores that energy. And your subconscious, it sure as hell remembers. It remembers every freaking detail. And then you have fun where you're just paralyzed from doing anything. Like you just feel like comatose, like a zombie, and you're just like on autopilot on default mode. And so we see a lot of this, but we haven't, no one's really being taught how to handle it, how to process it, how to move forward as a society and like what is happening with our society, again, like thinking of the younger generations, what's happened? Is this desensitizing them to this kind of thing? Is it taking away empathy and compassion? A little bit. I feel like we're already seeing this. And I think that that's happening because, again, our nervous system is fried. And you can't even like show compassion or empathy or emotion because you're in this state of either fighting or flighting or fawning. Like you're just, we're not handling this because we don't know how, and on top of all of that, prior to that, we had the full moon and the lunar eclipse, which you guys know if you've listened to this podcast for a while, I feel like it always messes with me. It always feels heavy. A lot of emotions come to the surface. And I saw that a lot. I had so many people talking to me, and the first thing they would do is say, "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?" And start blaming themselves. I am so lazy. I feel so drained. There must be something wrong. I just want to sleep. I don't want to do anything. I'm not motivated. Or like I've been an emotional wreck. I can't seem to get it together. Like what's wrong with me? When really you're just trying to process this energy that's coming to the surface. And the thing about the eclipse, this whole eclipse season, the way that I've always looked at it is the eclipse is like a quantum portal. It's if you're not into the whole quantum manifestation thing, you can think of it as like the end of an old chapter, the beginning of a new chapter. You're flipping the page. You're closing the book and you're opening up a new book. It's where certain things are going to come to an end, and the seeds that you planted prior are going to start to sprout, but they're not yet blooming. It's the beginning. And the best thing in this period of transition is to really ground yourself because your subconscious does not like change. And so when things are changing, it feels unsafe. And then when your nervous system feels unsafe, your energy is off. And you really can't manifest from that. You can, but you end up manifesting more of this confusion or overwhelm or, whatever feelings are coming to the surface. And I think that we have a hard time with that in between phase where we need to ground ourselves because we're so conditioned to constantly be doing something. We're taught this from the time we enter school in kindergarten all the way through graduation. So we're taught things like we have to work really hard to be successful, and stress, it just is part of life. And the more stressed you are, the more productive you are, the more you do, the better the output, the better the results, the better outcome. And it's just very opposite of what's true. And you may already know that through life experience. I'm sure there's been a point in your life where you did work really hard, stressed yourself out, went above and beyond, expecting it to pay off in the long run, and you're going to find that success, and then you'll be happy, then you can relax, and that time never comes. Instead, you reach burnout. And from there, you just don't know what to do. It's like you feel lost, you feel lazy, you feel like there's something wrong with you. And yet we're still teaching kids this. It's still the conditioning in our society that this is normal. This is normal to constantly be doing. And if you do sit with yourself, if you do try to regulate, try to calm yourself, that's a waste of time. You're going to fall behind. You don't have time for that. There are more important things to focus on. Throughout my schooling, we had art class and we had music class, right? But those were electives. Those were not to be taken seriously. And then as you get older, it's like you don't have time for that. You need to focus on getting into a good college, which means you got to focus on, your math and da da da, taking all these standardized tests. And then the same is pushed throughout college so you can get a good job. And you're just constantly being conditioned to be in your masculine energy and to ignore your creativity, your imagination, your intuition. And so we're taught this, we're conditioned this way, and we continue doing it until we finally reach burnout. But the problem is, sometimes that burnout isn't enough to really wake you up to realize. And we end up repeating the same pattern over and over and over again. And one quick thing on the conditioning, that really kind of proves what I'm saying. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it firsthand, so you know, but they actually did a study. And what year was this? I believe it was in the 70s. I don't think I have the exact year in front of me, but this study was created, it was for NASA, okay? It was basically created to help NASA select the best future scientists and engineers. And so they wanted to see, like, of all the kids in the next generation, who are going to be the ones that we can recruit to help build new rockets and innovate. And that's what they were looking for, the next like rocket scientists. And if you're going to do something that's never been done before, what do you need? You need creativity and imagination. So they put together this study. They hired a group, put together this study where they looked at children starting at the time they go into kindergarten. So this was like 4 and 5 year olds. And they tested them all throughout, or not all throughout. They did like a test when they were 4 and 5. They did another test when they were 10. And then they did another test when they were 15. And then there was another group of adults that were also tested, same test. And what they measured was divergent thinking or creativity. They wanted to see if you had the ability to generate many new or different ideas, to come up with like novel solutions rather than convergent thinking, which is finding the one right answer. And so what they found were that 4 and 5 year olds, 98% of them had the ability to be divergent thinkers, to think outside the box, come up with new novel ideas, and many of them. At 10 years old, that number went from 98% to only 30%. Just at 10 years old, only 30% could do this. The rest wanted to find that one right answer. At 15 years old, that number went down to only 12%. And then the adults, which I think it started at around age 25 on up, only 2%. And so the conclusion of this study was that non-creative behavior is learned. It is inherent in all of us. We are all creative beings, but we are taught to be convergent, that there's only one right answer. And you better focus on getting the right answer and stop wasting your time daydreaming and using your imagination and creativity because that doesn't pay the bills. And so, I mean, you would think this would have been enough to completely change the education system, but no, they're still teaching this shit to this day. But the whole reason I bring this up is because it highlights how backwards things are. We are taught to hustle and grind it out and work our asses off so that someday hopefully we can retire with a lot of money and then we'll be happy. Where if we just tried to balance out our energy, bring in more of that creativity, more of that imagination, if we were taught to regulate our nervous system, everything would change. Everything. And that was a big learning lesson for me, and it continues to be because you know what? Let's be honest. When you hear about nervous system regulation, that doesn't sound exciting. When I first heard about this, I was like, I don't have time for that. I want to manifest. I want to do things. I want to create things. Give me something to do. I don't have time for that. I don't need that. And I kind of ignored it because to me, I just thought it was boring. But when I finally reached burnout for like the however many times, I mean, my God, this started when I worked at Coke, got completely burnt out, literally went in so, okay, let's just back up for a second. I'll just share the whole picture because I'm sure that you can relate to at least one of these stories. My first job out of college, and I'm gung ho. I'm like, I want to climb the corporate career ladder and be CEO someday. And I start working at Coke, and it was just, there were fun parts about it, but the leadership that took over sucked the fun out of it, and it became very stressful, and very like fear based. Like there was always this fear that you're going to be fired. And yet I got myself into a management position and it just was hell. It was awful. That like the biggest critique of mine was that my people need to fear me more. And I would try and explain why that's going to get short-term results, but long-term we're going to lose those people. And they didn't care. So when I went in for my year-end review, I pretty much told off my manager and told him how everyone's going to quit and like he's screwing himself by having this fear-based mentality. And I just lost it because instead of like regulating, I let everything kind of boil and come to the surface and then just let it out. And then it's like, I'm out, I'm done. And went to another company, same thing, like that was better and for a while. But then again, like I did it to myself. I worked myself into exhaustion because I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be at the top. I wanted to, I don't know. I was just so programmed. Same thing. So then I left the corporate world. I go and I start working for myself. Same thing. I'm my own boss. I make my own schedule, but somehow I would end up in these situations where I'm like, why did I even do this? Why did I sign up for this? I'm I'm doing it because I feel like I have to constantly be doing something, but then I just reach burnout. So when I finally realized that and I started implementing some nervous system regulation, some different ways of grounding, it changed everything. Like that's when I got into quantum physics and quantum manifestation because I realized none of it has to do with effort or exertion. It all has to do with energy. And our energy, for the most part, is shit, which is why we keep manifesting shit. We keep manifesting average, mediocrity, or worse. And until we shift the energy component of it, we're not going to be manifesting what we really want. We're going to be manifesting a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of self sabotage. And so when I started implementing these things, that's when like everything changed. And but it's changes that are hard to quantify, right? Because I've always been good at manifesting material things that you can quantify. Like you can quantify a house, a certain income level, like those kinds of things. But you can't quantify a feeling necessarily, or a relationship, or a lifestyle. Those are very subjective, you know? So it's hard for me to describe how much changed, but I just feel like my lifestyle and my feeling overall, that happiness and that fulfillment and that freedom, that was what I really wanted when I was trying to manifest more money and more material things. That all came when I started giving some attention to my nervous system and grounding myself and going within instead of constantly doing and trying to look to external things to make it happen. So I say all that to say that there's a lot going on right now with what I talked about in the beginning. There's just a lot of crazy energy going around, a lot of trauma, a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of overwhelm. And that's on top of just the everyday stress that we feel in our society. And it's on top of the full moon and the lunar eclipse and all the crazy energy and emotions that that brings. And so I feel like we're all in this sort of daze, you know? Maybe that's the fawn stage or the freeze stage, or maybe you're in the fight stage. I don't know, but I just feel like we all need a reset. And so, as I told you guys before, on I think it was last week's episode when I had Amber on, this Thursday, so if you're listening to this on Monday, this Thursday, September 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern, we are doing what we call the burnout blueprint, which is where we walk through this cycle and like why it happens and how it happens and how to interrupt it. So, on the call collectively, we're going to regulate our nervous system. We're going to get out of that fight or flight and into that feeling of safety so that you can get it together and like manifest from a place of feeling grounded and secure. And this is where you go from feeling like you're constantly forcing to things just happening and it just feels easy. And anything you do, like any action you do take, feels exciting. It feels aligned. It feels energetic. It's just like a no brainer kind of thing. That's the difference between being in this dysregulated system, nervous system, to regulated. So, this is going to be the only live workshop I do this year. Probably, I don't know that I'm going to do any moving forward. So, join in if you can. Yes, the replay will be available, and you're going to get a lot of things from Amber and I that you can take with you. So, you're not just regulating in that moment on the call, but we're giving you the tools that you need to make this a long-term process. So you don't keep repeating the same cycle and finding yourself in the same situation over and over and over again. So I'll put the link in the show notes. You can also go to lawofattractiontribe.com and the button is right there on the page. So you can go sign up and save your seat for that. And yeah, I just feel like everyone needs it right now, including myself, you know? I'm teaching it, but like I need it too. We need this daily right now. We're in this period of time where it can't hurt. It can only help. And I think it's going to help in ways that you can't even foresee right now. You know, it's not just a short-term band-aid, it's a long-term fix to a big root problem that no one in our society wants to talk about or take on. And I'm just really passionate about it right now because, like I said, like I need this. I'm trying to share with you the things that I'm personally doing and using to improve my own life. And I think that I don't think there's a person in the world that can't benefit from learning how to quickly and easily regulate their nervous system, heal their subconscious beliefs, and get into a state of flow so they can manifest from that state instead of this crazy, stressed out world that we've all created for ourselves. So between now and Thursday, I have a little bit of, I guess we'll say pre-work for this. And I learned this through my process of starting homeschooling. So, and a lot of you have asked about this too. I've had, I don't even know, maybe like 3, 4 people reach out to me that are like, we're just done. We're done. We're ready to look into homeschooling. Where do we begin? And what I tell everyone, like the first thing you should do is go on Facebook and find groups in your area so you can start learning from other people who actually went through it, who actually are homeschooling, because they're just going to be able to give you a more realistic perspective and a lot of tips that you're not going to find on like your state website, for example. But one of the groups that I'm in locally, the woman who heads up the group, she's been doing homeschooling her whole life. And she always recommends when people start homeschooling, and this, if you're not a homeschooler, stick with me because this has to do with like what we're talking about and how it can be applied to your life. So she always recommends if you're transitioning from public school or like going to school to being homeschooled, she recommends a period of time where you do what's called unschooling. And the unschooling approach is basically a lesson free, curriculum free form of education where children are guided by their interests. You bring in like nature a lot of times. So instead of like sitting in a classroom or doing a worksheet, like you'll go and do hands on activities like outside in the real world or in nature. And she doesn't recommend doing this forever. She just says, like, have a period of time. Like, this is your transition time. This is your September where you're transitioning into this new chapter or new book. And basically, what you're doing is you're just pausing. Okay. So you're just forgetting about everything you were taught about the way it should be. And that pause allows you to figure out how you think it should be. Because a lot of the things we tell ourselves, a lot of the beliefs we have, were never ours to begin with. Someone else put that there and we just accepted it. But if you can pause and you can unschool your life, you can start to see what you're naturally drawn to. Where's your intuition guiding you? And it might be completely different from what you're doing right now. But it's a good exercise to do. So it's basically just saying, like, forget everything that you've ever been taught, start questioning it, and just See what happens, what comes through. Stop planning, put away the planner, put away the to-do list, the reminders in your phone as best as you can. I know it's not possible to just like turn off life and work and everything else, but to the best of your ability, just clear some space in your schedule to just be, to just be. Like don't even think like, well, what am I going to do during this time? Don't even think that. Just wake up and decide intuitively in that moment, what are you feeling drawn to? And this doesn't have to be a long process. Like you could do this for a day, you can do it for a weekend, an afternoon, whatever. But it's very interesting. And I think that alone helps break up so much subconscious programming that a lot of the other stuff is great that we teach, but that alone is going to help you start to look at things in a new light, in a new perspective based on you, your intuition. It's helping you go within and figure out the truth rather than relying on all these things that have been told to you or taught to you. So, I mean, try it if you want. If you don't want to, don't do it. But I thought it was really interesting. And I think it's an exercise everyone should at least try and see what comes about. And I think that would be great pre work between now and Thursday when we do this workshop. So I hope to see you there. I will be there. The replay will be available if you can't make it live. But of course, it's always better live, just energetically, I think. So hope to see you there. Go to lawofattractiontribe.com or the link in the show notes to sign up. And I'll see you back here next week, or I'll see you in the workshop on Thursday.